So when I was growing up, my whole thing was I would stay up until 2 in the morning to watch all the shows my parents would let me watch.
Of course he did.
And so I caught the edited episodes of Tales from the Crypt, not realizing that there was breasts and blood and horrible swearing constantly throughout them. Got to rewatch them with my parents unedited years
It's got
later.
all the B's, right?
Yes, of course.
Breasts and blood and beasts and everything.
And of course, when a great TV series comes along, especially an anthology one, what do you do when it comes to an end? You make a movie.
Yes.
The first of 3 movies, not the 3 that we originally had planned, but we did get at least the first one of the plan, which was Demon Knight from 1995. We're going to cover that film today.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, I'm Nick for the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on X and on Instagram. Heck yeah, we have a Patreon. Of course we do. Check that out for some great deals and some great content and an opportunity to tell us what movies we can review here on the show in a later feature episode. And of course, a shout out to you. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about a film from Tales of the Crypt HBO special, right?
Well, this was a feature film officially from Universal, but the wild time that was Demon Knight.
Yeah.
When mysterious man Breaker arrives at a boarding home with a mysterious key, the residents are ready to turn him over to the police. But they quickly discover that he's being followed by a powerful demon only known as the Collector. Now the residents must defend themselves until morning from an onslaught of demons as they settle in for the fright of their life.
This is directed by cinematographer.
Yeah, Ernest Dickerson finally got the chance.
He's done wonderful things with Spike Lee being a cinematographer. I think he was a cinematographer for Do the Right Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, very harshly snubbed for cinematography for Malcolm X. He did fantastic work. And how he did not get nominated for that is a surprise.
He's consistently done just excellent work across his career. I think he's actually a pretty damn good director. I know Bones with Snoop Dogg gets a lot of bad love, but it's a pretty cool little horror movie. It's an absolute mess as far as writing, but he directs the hell out of it. And he's also done a lot of episodes recently of things like The Walking Dead, where he's shot and directed those, and I think those are some of the most cinematic looking television shows out there. So.
Yeah, and he got his bones after doing with Spike Lee. He did music videos in the early 90s with like Bruce Springsteen and stuff that get a lot of accolades. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is started at a spec script. Please tell us, viewers, what a spec script is.
Basically, it's written on the idea that I'm going to write the script, so when you ask me what I have, I can show it. Like I can peruse it for you and present it for you. Yeah. But it's not really something that you've been paid to write. I have a number of spec scripts.
So it's not an outline. You just got like, this is what the story entails.
And kind of like, here's what I will present to you when you give me some money.
So this was a very popular spec script that's been shopped around. It's a writing duo. Peppered in with kind of occasionally with Mark Bishop, but it's
it was Ethan Reif and Cyrus Voris who did the main kind of writing for this film, and then Bishop kind of came in and did a rewrite. Riley and Voris actually are really weird. Reif and Voorhees did Bulletproof Monk, which is a movie from the early 2000s that's not well beloved. But he also really accessed my childhood with a movie series called Josh Kirby Time Warrior, which are terrible movies, but there was 6 of them.
I've never heard of
this. I loved these movies.
What the hell is it again?
It's about Josh Kirby plays a guy who jumps through different time zones and like realms, and like he fights dinosaurs that are in the future, and he's a baby in a giant guy's baby set. It's a weird freaking movie series, but definitely worth your time if you're looking for nostalgic 90s.
They also wrote Kung Fu Panda.
Oh, yes, it should be noted that they are the writers of the Academy Award level.
So they wrote this spec, and then the Universal picked it up, and then it got... I would say, how would you transcribe how it got part of Tales of the Crypt? Because it's not part of the linear stories of the comic books. Yeah,
so this is actually one of the only stories. A few of them in the show weren't, but one of the only stories that didn't actually come from EC. Because it was written from a spec script, it wasn't going to be planned to be one. What's funny is how it floated through a lot of directors that we've talked about. The first person who had his hands on it was actually Tom Holland. And he was looking to make this film, I think, right before... right after Child's Play. But unfortunately, the timing didn't work out, and like all things, he moved on to something else.
So like we're talking about, this came out in 1995, and this spec script has been shopped around, I think, like 89 and 90.
Yeah, and I think and then it made its way over to Mark Carducci, who you may not remember the name, but he was one of the screenwriters for Pumpkinhead, a film that we talked about recently.
Perfect.
He was attached for a little while, and again, as all things happened, it fell apart, and he left to other things. Yeah. Then it made its way over to Mary Lambert, who is going to really radicalize the script a little bit and make Breaker kind of focus on a race thing with Breaker, make him a black lead character, because she wanted the idea that kind of the most oppressed of our society will be the saviors of our society, which is a really interesting idea.
Well, with the hat and the trench coat, he would look like what's that guy's name from Jason Goes to Hell?
Oh yeah, Creighton Duke. Yeah,
he would look totally like him. Yeah.
But yeah, and then she of course decided I'm gonna go work on Pet Sematary 2 instead, and so like all things, she moved along in the film.
So we're up to 3 now.
Yes, and finally made its way through the Full Moon Features thing, where they realized they couldn't afford it, and landed on the desk of Joel Silver, who was one of the producers for Tales from the Crypt. And like all things, he realized the potential of it, realized it could be a lot of fun.
It had to be a heck of a spec script for even all those people to
because
do it, right?
we think about the blacklist right now, the list of screenplays that are unproduced and such that floats around Hollywood, and people talk about them all the time. Sure, that thing existed back then, but it wasn't to the extent of like, this was word of mouth. This was not internet word of mouth.
So it got to Ernest Dickerson, and then it's Tales of the Crypt, which is a big hit in the early '90s on HBO. I think it comes out like it's Sunday night, and then you have the Crypt Keeper, and the Dangling. There was episodes of the Tales of the Crypt comic book, always lifted from the series. And then you had a little snippet from the show, like they show a little bit snippet of the comic book, like this is what it looks like, and compared to the show.
I call this one.
But it also was a little more dancing on the satirical, making it a little more silly. There was never this doom and gloom. It was always like, hey, we're having fun doing this horror movie stuff.
Yeah, the only time the show ever hit kind of doom and gloom was when it was actually 3 episodes that were supposed to be for a spin-off that got canceled called Two-Fisted Tales, and then made their way back into the main level story. Those were all the depressing ones.
Which is interesting because a lot of tales it came from Entertainment Comics, and I'm not going to do the comic book history, but it came from Entertainment Comics in the 40s, which was their Tales of Crypt, Vault of Fear, Vault of Fear, and
Suspense stories.
And every one of those, the protagonist was in a grimy, condemned, doomed environment, almost like a noir, but he was never going to escape. And all they had these shocking covers, right? So that's the nature where Tales of the Crypt came from. But here, the movies always present that that's going to happen, but it's also like a jolly experience almost for watching it.
Yeah, I think the biggest fault with the movies as connected to the show was that the movies were always written as a movie first and then became a Tales from the Crypt thing.
Yeah.
You know, that happened with Ritual later on, a movie that became a Tales from the Crypt movie, and then they decided to get rid of the Tales from the Crypt part, and then the movie failed, so they put it back in. Like, they've tried, like, kind of making these movies work, and I think it would have worked best if they had gone back to the source material. You know, if you look at the original Tales from the Crypt movie from the 1970s, that was an anthology-style show, film. And I think that might have been its biggest flaw, was that even Peter Jackson's The Frighteners almost became a Tales from the Crypt movie. But the thing is, that movie works on its own.
Right.
And I think what you want to have is you want to maybe have a film that adapts a couple of stories, maybe intermixes them, and then allows for the Crypt Keeper to kind of come in between parts and continue narrating.
Yeah. All right, so this stars Billy Zane. This is 1995. This is before Phantom. This is before Titanic.
Yep. So he would try out being a nice guy and then go back to being a villain.
Go back to being a villain. My God, I haven't seen Dead Calm. It's still fantastic for him. Him and Nicole Kidman and Sam Neill. And then, of course, you have William Sadler from... is that, I'm getting it right, the last name?
Yeah, Sadler's right.
Yeah, Sadler. He's from Beavis and Butthead.
Was he in Beavis and Butthead?
Yeah, he's deaf.
Oh,
yeah,
my
the makeup
God.
on, yeah.
Oh, no, Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
What did I say?
You said Beavis and Butthead.
No, not Beavis. Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure.
He was in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. He was in the second one and showed up in the third film again. The funny thing was he actually played the character of Death again in Tales from the Crypt, the TV show. He was actually in costume as the same character.
That's why I want to bring it up. Yeah, I'm sorry I said
and it's really funny that he was in 2 Tales from the Crypt episodes. He was actually in the pilot episode, the original episode of Tales from the Crypt, and then he showed back up as Death, and then he would show back up in the second movie again as the Mummy. So it was like you couldn't get William Sadler away from this. and I was okay with that.
No. Right.
In fact, William Sadler's still working. He actually plays the lead vampire villain in the new adaptation of Salem's Lot, which is currently sitting on the shelves at Warner Brothers.
What
Warner
the hell?
Brothers, please.
We have a new.
It was shot 2 years ago. We're still waiting for it to come out. So
I do like this.
So Warner Brothers, help us out. Get us more William Sadler.
I do like that story.
Mm-hmm.
I want that one. Yeah. All right, Billy Zane, William Sadler, and then of course my favorite is the very curmudgeon. Why am I in this? Dick Miller.
Yeah. Yeah, Dick Miller always seemed like the guy who wasn't happy to be in the movies he was in, but then when you
He's always
hear
a
interviews
curmudgeon.
afterwards, he loved being in them. So
Right. He always projected like, oh, I'm in this thing. Right. All right. Writing out the cast is a very fresh Jada Pinkett. Not Smith yet.
Yeah, pre-Smith.
Pre-Smith.
Pre-Scream 2. So, really hadn't, done a ton at this point. But shines in this film, I think. And
this
then
is one of
gets
her
a chance to do some more
springboards
stuff.
to her career. And then writing out the cast is what else?
Well, we've got Brenda Bakke, who played Cordelia, the prostitute character.
Yeah.
Doesn't get a lot to do in the film outside of prostitutioning.
No.
But then you have C.C.H. Pounder playing, Irene, the owner of the monastery.
Yeah, look her up.
Look
it up, yeah.
Yeah, she actually, you probably have seen a couple recent films with C.C.H. Pounder because she is under blue green screen playing in the Avatar films. So she plays the mother of Zoe Saldana's character, I believe.
And then you have from Wings. This might be right when Wings kind of ended.
Yeah, this is also an interesting one because Thomas Hayden Church coming off of Wings, where he's not a bad guy in that show. He's a little
he's off the mark.
Yeah, off the mark.
He's like
stuff.
Woody Boyd and Cheers.
But this is him kind of testing out villainy as well.
Right. This is before Sandman.
Yeah.
10 years before Sandman. But it's very awkward to see him do this because we always he had a charming aspect in Wings. And that's where everybody that's where we all found him. And then, he's doing this villainy kind of a stuff. It looks like it's shot on stage, but there's some exteriors on locations for road stuff. But it looks like
for the opening and closing, of course, there was stuff that was done out there. But they actually had a really great idea because they knew this film was going to be entirely night set.
Yeah.
So they built it in an airplane hangar. The entire house, the entire building, was built there.
That's what I'm saying.
That way they could shoot during the day.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If I won $1 billion and I was going to do noir, I would rent out an airplane hangar
and just build every set.
To build all the hallways and sets because you got perfect. It's going to be nighttime no matter what.
And you can have complete control over the lighting. It is unnatural lighting to beat all, but I think that's a clever idea because again, yes, this was Tales from the Crypt. It was a popular show, but even we who know Tales from the Crypt know that it was losing popularity. They had to film their last season of Tales from the Crypt in England because they could do it for cheaper. So they had different effects. They had different people on board. It was a different show for that last season.
It was a really small window where it was really popular.
Yeah, and I think this was kind of coming off the heels where it was losing steam. They probably should have tried films earlier in its run. I think to really get
it's one of those fatal things is while we're losing gas, make a movie.
Yeah. And so you have a case where the budget's not big, but they made a clever choice of we can save a lot of money if we just build it in one spot. We all hang out here. We all get it done. And it's a single location for most of the film. It's, again, an incredibly clever idea.
I want to make a movie that way. All right. Granted, that's enough background. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Demon Knight, Tales from the Crypt. Actually, this is the first time I've ever seen it.
You've never seen Demon Knight?
I've never seen Demon Knight. I've seen Bordello of Blood. This is actually the first time I've ever seen it.
Oh, okay.
I think if you understand what you're getting into and you know the template of Tales of the Crypt, it's an enjoyable experience. I understand the saltiness is probably what you expect a little more doom and gloomy from the comic books, but you understand it's salacious, intentionally salacious. It's intentionally stupid. Mm-hmm. It's fun, but also you get a lot of the caricature framing and everything. I understand if you get into it, you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, this is very much if Spinal Tap made a horror film, you have to get everything up to 11. Nothing can be within the realm of normal acting, normal performance. And the thing about it is you're having fun as a viewer, I think, if the people in the film are having fun. And I don't think there's ever a person that seems to have more fun in a movie than Billy Zane does in this movie. The way in which the Collector is portrayed, I think was supposed to be more just hands down villainous before he had been attached to the role. But the idea of he plays it straight while he's with the cops, and then when he finally has to kind of lose the garb and admit I just want to kill everyone, that he's kind of outside doing a little jig and stuff and dancing. He's having the time of his life claiming souls, and I think that's something incredibly villainous.
And then you have to do it enticing them through their different, almost like needful things. Mm-hmm. I'll entice you. Oh, you like women? How about this for you?
Yeah.
You just give me what you want. And there's gaudy key that has blood into it. So it's all those little trinkets that you appreciate for, these kind of almost cheeky, kind of campy horror films.
Yeah. I like that the original idea was that the key was going to make an appearance in every Tales from the Crypt movie, and it doesn't in Bordello of Blood. Of course, it doesn't in the third film, but I like the idea that the key would have been like this recurring motif throughout the different films. It's a cool little set piece. I like that Billy Zane is doing the Bugs Bunny thing. Like, particularly when he pops out of the ground to talk to C.C.H. Pounder, and offer her arm back.
You need something like that to understand what you're getting into.
Yep.
And I understand that's going to turn people off because they're expecting something from, like, Dr. Giggles or something. That was going to
Yeah. I think in this way, while I don't think the film itself feels as much like a Tales from the Crypt story as many of the episodes do, I do think that having the Tales from the Crypt wraparound segments helps the film because it helps to set the tone for what the film will be. Does that make sense? It is supposed to be a little silly, a little fun, a little goofy, and a little horrific. And having the Crypt Keeper show up to let us know this is kind of what we're in for does help with the film. And I think it will help most viewers.
We haven't talked about it, but it was interesting beginning of the movie. I did like the beginning of the movie. And it's a little play almost like Brian De Palma of making a slasher in the movie. And then it's John Larroquette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying, where did they dig up this guy?
Yeah. That got me. But it does at the kind of the third act when we kind of like we have to entice every little kid. I know the kids never be in trouble, not going to be harmed. I know about that. It's just the way it's just the way it's going to be. But it does get a little bit longer, and then the gags of the Crypt Keeper and the Hollywood and all that stuff. And, you have to have an appreciation for it because I understand it's going to stick a lot of people that come on, let's go over it.
Yeah, my biggest fault with the film is I think the portion in which the collector is trying to turn Geraldine as his lover at the end of the film, I think it's unnecessary. I think it kind of just feels like it's out of place in the film, like the narrative should have already ended at that point. And now the collector is like, be my wife and I'll turn you and I'll make you beautiful forever. And it's just kind of like,
it's very Beetlejuice.
Well, the thing about it, too, is, we've seen it before, but also the collector's so good at diving into what you want most, like in getting into your thing. Geraldine has never been a character at any point in this film who's been, like, concerned about her youthful beauty or concerned about staying young forever. She's concerned about getting the hell out of the position she's in and living her life. And it's like he doesn't offer her that. He offers her romance, and I think that part just doesn't work for me. It's just frustrating because the narrative feels like it had a logical conclusion 5-10 minutes earlier, and I feel like it would tighten up the narrative and kind of move us on to the next thing.
And it really wasn't all that interested in all the subplots of where they're going to go. I understand Thomas Hayden Church is a bad guy. You don't need a smacker girl. I already know he's a bad guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
You don't need a smacker, and then we have to have this dialogue about you stay with me because I'm the best, right?
Yeah. This was one of the first films I'd seen when I was younger that had the whole idea of like the person who saw Christ get crucified and is like carrying that lineage down. And I think it's kind of a cool little mythology that they built around that. It's funny because, like 30 years later, The Nun kind of ripped off a lot of elements of this like secret key with the blood of Christ and stuff. The Nun itself took a lot of elements from Demon Knight.
Yeah.
I think the Demon Knight
Annabelle took a lot of lifting from Child's Play.
That's true. They should have been in love. Yeah. But I think there's something about the mythology and the way it's presented. I like that William Sadler is playing Breaker incredibly serious, and that Billy Zane is playing the Collector incredibly unserious. They really have this good kind of meeting of complete different performances.
Oh, right. And for me, it's just right. I'm never going to go back to it, but I understand. I'm going to tell viewers you have to get to know what you're getting into to appreciate it because there's going to be things that you're not going to you're going to get salty if you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah, and that's why I think the mood it's never been my favorite of the three, but it's far from my least favorite. It lands right in the middle of my Tales from the Crypt ranking, I guess. I enjoy the realm of Bordello of Blood. I think that kind of fits the comedy horror aspect, I think, a little bit better.
Outrageous,
yeah. Well, it feels like it's more of a Tales from the Crypt story, whereas this one feels like it's kind of a pretty solid little horror movie, but I never felt like it really felt like a Tales from the Crypt movie.
Yeah, right. What do you think of our comments about the show?
Yeah, let us know your favorite Tales from the Crypt episode or issue or film. We'll take anything. Let us know down in the comments what you thought about it. And thank you guys for joining us for this breakdown of Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight. Maybe one day we'll get back to Bordello of Blood. You're damn right we will.
I know how if you join the Patreon and then tell us to do that.
That's true. You can always force feed us into it as well by checking out patreon.com/KyleNick on film. And right now you can also check out goatfilmreviews.com for my many written reviews. I have reviews of all 3 Tales from the Crypt movies over on that website
You
right
are a
now.
maniac.
You just got to look for them. They're in the deep with the other 1,000 reviews. And until next time,
You are
kiddies.
a maniac. You did all of them. All right. Yeah. And you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, where I interview independent filmmakers from the Twin Cities, anywhere you find podcasts.
Are those filmmakers nicer than the Crypt Keeper behind the camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
And funnier.
Good to know.